Welcome to PMCentersUSA's complimentary webinar on the Project Management Professional Exam Changes that are happening in 2021. My name is Rick Clare, and I'm a partner with and the director of PMCentersUSA. I'll be your presenter today. I've been working in IT for more than 30 years now as a developer, trainer, project manager, and business analyst. In addition to my corporate duties, I'm also a frequent speaker at various national organizations and an adjunct professor of project management in the master's program at Northeastern University. The purpose of this presentation is to help you prepare to take the exam after January 2nd, 2021, when it changes dramatically. We're going to take a look at the application and the test process and focus in on any recent changes. We're going to look at the fundamental structure changes for the exam itself in 2021 because they're big. And we're going to look at the knowledge-based question as they relate to Agile. We're going to start by looking at the PMP program, both the old and the new as a contrast. Then we will switch to taking a look at the application process and how it's changed. We're going to start by looking at the PMP program itself. You're encouraged to download the Project Management Professional Handbook from PMI's website. This publication provides all the information you need for the certification process. Globally recognized and demanded, the PMP credential demonstrates to employers, clients, and colleagues that a project manager possesses project management knowledge, experience, and skills to bring projects to successful completion. We encourage you to read the handbook, which contains information on how you can apply for the PMP credential, and this applies to both computer-based and paper-based testing candidates. The purpose of this handbook is to provide you with important information about the policies and procedures for obtaining and maintaining the PMP credential. In this topic, we'll go through some of the highlights from that handbook. The PMP credential is accredited by the American National Standards Institute, ANSI, against the International Organization for Standardization, ISO. The 17024 standard includes rigorous requirements for examination development and maintenance and for the quality management systems for continuing quality assurance. In addition, the PMP credential is also registered against ISO 9001 standard for quality management systems. This accreditation provides a third-party affirmation of quality in the development, management, and governance of the PMP credential. It also gives credential holders and organizations who employ them additional confidence in the credential. PMI's certification and credentials are distinguished by their global development and application, which makes them transfer across industries and geographic boundaries. PMI's certification program is designed to ensure that all certification holders have demonstrated their competence through fair and valid measures. Note that you don't have to join PMI to take the PMP exam, but when we discuss the certification costs later, you'll see it's advantageous to belong to PMI. Also note that the exam measures your knowledge of project management. It does not measure your skill at applying that knowledge to projects. To achieve the PMP certification, there are just 4 steps. Pretty simple, but remember, a wise man once said that sometimes the simplest things are the most difficult. First, you've got to satisfy all the educational and experience requirements established by PMI before you can even apply. You have to agree to follow the PMI Code of Ethics and Professional Conduct. You have to complete and submit your application and pay the testing fee in advance. And then, of course, you have to pass the exam. So a little bit on the history of the certification exam and its contents. These change approximately every 4 years, and that's true. The last change was in 2015, which puts us a bit behind, actually. Professions evolve over time, and their certifications should also. Most project managers now work in a combination of development approaches, Agile and Waterfall, so the certification exam has changed to reflect that. And also business expectations have evolved, and the exam also reflects those. By the way, the new 7th edition of the PMBOK guide is scheduled to be available in early 2021. There's an education requirement that must be in place before you can apply for the exam. You must have 35 contact hours of project management training. There's no time frame for this requirement, by the way. It can go back many years. Qualifying programs include university and college courses, training companies such as PMCentersUSA, PMI chapter courses and or programs, registered education providers, which again PMCentersUSA is one of, company-sponsored programs, and anything relating to project management that you did through a distance learning company. By the way, 1 hour of classroom instruction equals 1 contact hour. If you have completed a university or college course on project management that met for 3 hours per week for 15 weeks, for example, you would be able to record 45 contact hours. If only a portion of that course dealt with project management, only the hours spent on project management can be applied towards the total. This requirement, by the way, has not changed. You must also meet an experience criteria in order to apply. You've got to satisfy the requirement for one of the following categories. Just one, not all three. Category 1, a bachelor's or equivalent university degree, 36 unique months of project management experience leading and directing projects. Category 2, high school diploma or equivalent, and 60 unique months of project management experience leading and directing projects. And Category 3, a bachelor's or postgraduate from an accredited program, and a minimum 24 months of project management experience leading and directing projects. In addition to Category 3 being a new category to the previous two, the old real-world project management experience of 4,500 or 7,500 hours has been eliminated. The focus is now on those months as indicated on the slide. This change has substantially reduced the amount of information needed on the PMP's application, and as a result has reduced the amount of time needed to collect and document the experience for the applicant. That's good news. The GAC accredited programs can be found on PMI's website. The Global Accreditation Center for Project Management Education is an independent academic accreditation body with policies, procedures, and standards for project, program, portfolio management, and related programs at your bachelor's, postgraduate, or doctoral degree level. Note, by the way, the different showing in the top right-hand corner of the slide. This little indicator is going to show up on slides that pertain to very specific and rather dramatic changes to the exam elements. Contrary to what many students and trainers may think, the PMP exam is not based on a guide to the project management body of knowledge. The PMBOK guide is only one of several references PMI uses to reference their exam questions. Instead, the exam is based on the PMP examination content outline. PMI will use this new outline as the basis to update the exam in the future. Additional source materials are listed on the following slide. Note also that the question material, the subjects and the form of the question are going to be moving away from the knowledge and process-based questions which made up the vast majority on previous exams and into more situational questions. You'll be placed in a situation and asked what the best thing to do is going forward or something like that, and you'll have to choose from a number of answers. Approximately 50% of the exam will also now be based on Agile concept, and the remaining 50% will be a combination of hybrid, Agile, and waterfall. By the way, the term project delivery is now used instead of project management in documentation, because this is felt to cover the outcomes as well as deliverables of the project. Project management, to that term in the past, seemed to imply that if you followed the process and did everything right, your project was a success, even if it wasn't, even if no one was happy with the results. There's that different indicator again. As we mentioned on the previous slide, PMI has provided a number of recommendations for materials that are listed here that it's used to formulate its exam content. I'm not going to list these, but you should know that many of these are fairly standard accepted books at the university level as well as in popular use. The new exam, beginning January 2nd, 2021, will now be distributed amongst 3 domains. Okay. No longer are they going to be referring to the 5 process groups or the knowledge areas in the past. This is a new division of information. We're going to spend a bit of time talking about these. 42% of this is about people. 50% is still about process. And 8% is now about the business environment. Okay, the actual process of the exam itself has been changed. There's now a built-in 10-minute break, and this is at the test center or online, doesn't matter. Think about this, the exam is now divided into 2 parts. Once you've completed the first part of the exam, which is 89 questions, your 10-minute break starts. You don't have to take the break. You can roll right over into the second part of the exam. But that will be your only chance, perhaps, to take a bio break. This was done in response to the fact that that's an awful long time to be sitting, taking an exam without the opportunity to get up and walk around. Okay, note the 10 minutes is not part of the 4 hours. You have to keep track of your 10 minutes and make sure you're back on time. If you're not, if something goes wrong, you may lose the exam session. And no, there's no refund for that. You'll have to list it as a failure and reapply. At the end of the break, you'll be checked in by your proctor again, and then we'll finish the second and final part of the exam. Note, by the way, that because of this break, you will not have the opportunity to revisit the questions taken prior to the break. It really is almost like 2 separate exams now. The first one of 89 questions, once the break arrives, even if you don't take the break, once that break arrives, you do not have any chance at that moment on of going back and reviewing those 89 questions. Okay, keep that in mind. Note also that the online version of this exam can be taken 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days per year. There's no breaks on holidays or anything like that. A little bit of additional information on the online proctoring for the PMP exam if you decide to take this test from the comfort of your home. Okay, must remember this. You must be completely quiet without any interruptions. No dogs, no kids, no interruptions of any kind. In other words, you need to set this up in advance. There is a whiteboard for you to use for taking prior to the exam. We'll talk about that a little on the next slide. And note that except for your break, you're not allowed to get up and walk around. You're going to be proctored every moment. There's going to be someone watching you through the camera on your computer. You're going to have to use that camera, by the way, to show your office to the person who's going to be proctoring. Okay? There's no materials near you, no watches, no electronics, no telephones, nothing that could be construed as potential for you to access, say, an online source and get information that way. You're going to be recorded, and that recording may be used as evidence for why the proctor has decided to fail you if you violate some of these rules. You should strenuously check the technical requirements before doing this online. You might be thinking that it's the proctor's responsibility or PMI's responsibility or Pearson VUE's responsibility to help you and to solve your difficulties if it turns out that your internet isn't strong enough or isn't properly configured. I have some bad news for you. It is not. You're very likely to fail the exam if you do that. This is your responsibility to make sure this works. Yes, under some extreme circumstances, if there are problems of a technical nature, the proctor may be able to suspend or to stop the exam, but I'm telling you, it's pretty unlikely. Right. There's some information and details on this on the Pearson VUE's website, and there's some information on the possible use and when you're allowed to use it for that online whiteboard. By the way, something to keep in mind, you can't use a calculator. You can, but it has to be an electronic one that runs on your computer. You're not allowed to have a little calculator sitting beside you. You were allowed to bring a calculator into the test sites in the past, but not anymore. You've got to use the on-screen calculator, so you'd better find out what that looks like and get good at using it. Some contrast between the current exam and the new exam and the questions. The current exam, they're primarily predictive, waterfall development approach. In the new exam, it's a combination of development approaches, predictive and adaptive. The current exam is divided into those 5 process groups that we're all familiar with and the knowledge areas. In the new exam, it's divided into these 3 domains. The current exam has 4 multiple choice answers for every question, A, B, C, D. The new exam has different types. Now, don't be too alarmed. The new types are mostly drag and drop, also to be done online mostly, and also ones that show pictures and ask you to think about that and provide answers based on diagrams. Okay? The idea, of course, is to better test your soft skills and make sure that you have an agile mindset. The current exam has an established passing criteria. The passing criteria is still being developed for the new exam. It isn't published yet. All right, so earlier I said that we would take a look later at those 3 domains. Okay, so here we are. Here's the first one, the people. As you recall, it's 42%. Now the information is divided into tasks and enablers. Do not try to match these with knowledge areas and process groups. It doesn't work. Okay, it's an entirely different way of thinking and breaking these things down. There are 14 tasks, and those 14 tasks are divided into 53 different enablers that apply to this domain, the people domain. The focus is on leading and developing the team, facilitating, and agreement planning and negotiation. Some of the details inside the people domain, these are mostly enablers. Managing conflict, negotiating project agreements, build a team, mentor relevant stakeholders, support team performance, promote team performance through emotional intelligence. Those are just some of the examples. I won't read through each one of these, but it gives you an idea about what they're thinking about when they think about the people domain. Next domain is process. Now, I suppose you could think that this is the one that is most like the previous exam, and it's true to some extent, but don't get too excited here. All right? When they think about process now, it's a completely different framework. It's not like it was before. Definitely no process groups and knowledge areas. Same deal. It's got tasks and enablers, 17 of them and 61 enablers in this process area. By the way, the process area is worth half of the exam. It's 50%. The focus here is on planning and managing the project and the engagement of stakeholders. Integration and tailoring your approach. Evaluating, planning, and managing the influences on projects to deliver results. Again, here's an example of some of the details on this particular process. Managing communications. Okay, yeah, that sounds a little familiar, and you'll find it's mostly the same, that part of it. Engaging stakeholders. That sounds fairly similar to what was in place before. Project governance structure. That's a little different. Managing project issues. Yeah, there was some mention of that sort of thing before, but it mostly showed up in discussions on how to build an issues log rather than how to actually manage the issues that are showing up. But as a number of these are the same. Plan and manage schedule, quality, and scope. Integrate project planning activities. Yes, as I said, the one that is most similar to what you would have seen before in both the PMBOK guide and the exam is this domain. But again, don't get too excited. It's in an entirely different framework. And the last is the business environment. This domain is the smallest. It's only worth about 8% of the exam, and it only has 4 tasks and 19 enablers. Its focus here is on value and benefits, compliance, which is interesting. That wasn't mentioned much before in the PMBOK guide. Business influencers, and change management, which was discussed before. The standard for project management has changed also, mainly in its structure. it now talks about 12 principles. These principles are going to define the what and why of project delivery. These principles describe a fundamental truth, norm, or value and are not meant to be prescriptive. In order to ensure the intended outcomes of project delivery, project team members should follow these principles. Think about this as the philosophical side of project management. The 12 principles are stewardship, team, stakeholders, value, holistic thinking, leadership, tailoring the approach, quality, how complex the project is, opportunities and threats, adaptability and resilience, and change management. This is a very dramatic change. Prior to this, essentially anyone with a background in project management, hopefully, could prepare and deliver their own project management professional prep course. PMCentersUSA had its own. It was fairly high quality. These are no longer authorized anymore by PMI. The only PMP prep courses authorized by PMI themselves is their own. PMI is going to tightly control this course going forward, and this course material will be created and managed by PMI and licensed only to PMI authorized training partners, ATPs. PMCentersUSA is an ATP. And in addition to being an ATP, in order to deliver these classes, you have to have instructors that work for you that have gone through PMI training on how to deliver their PMP prep course. PMCentersUSA has a number of those instructors. Okay, well, let's switch topics. Let's talk about the PMP application process. Step one is you submit your certification application. You can do this online, and in fact, the vast majority of these are done online these days. The fees that are associated with it change depending on whether or not you're a member of PMI. If you're a member, it's a $405 fee. If you're a non-member, it's $555. Consider that if you're trying to decide whether or not to join PMI. I would recommend it. You have to provide your education verification forms and your experience verification forms. So recall that these latter are much reduced now, that they're going with months of project management rather than hours. Note also that there's a percentage of applications that are going to get audited, and that this is going up. Some years back, it was a fairly rare situation for an application to be audited. Now it seems like an awful lot more of them are. Okay, so your next step is that you receive eligibility notification. Approximately 5 business days after the receipt of the online application, PMI is going to review the application for completeness. Okay, and then it's going to send a certification eligibility email to the candidates that qualify. You must pass the PMP exam within 1 year of receipt of that eligibility certification, or you're going to be treated as if you'd failed the exam. And step 3, you take the PMP exam. It's conducted by Pearson VUE testing centers. And remember that it's now possible to do this online. The information on that was found in this presentation, but previous. A couple of things to note. China is still using its own test centers because they fall under government control in China. So it's not done the same way there. Except for China, you can register either by phone or online, and that testing is available online every day of the week. The reservations must be made in advance if you're going to a test center, and in the online one also, because don't forget that you're going to be proctored now, and that proctor has to be assigned. This is going to be a human being who's actually going to be watching you take the online exam. Upon completion of the exam, you are immediately given a report telling you whether you pass or fail. You don't have to wait. One thing to note, you have 3 attempts to pass the exam. It's possible to fail the thing twice and then pass it the 3rd time. You're fine. If you reschedule or cancel your exam within 30 days of your scheduled appointment, you'll be charged a fee of $70, but the balance that you paid will be refunded. This 30-day period does not include the day of the exam. For example, if you scheduled your exam for 5th of May, you must reschedule or cancel the exam on or before April 4th to avoid the fee. Warning, if you wait until you're within 2 days of your exam appointment, you can cancel your appointment, but you'll forfeit the entire fee. You will not be able to reschedule your appointment at this point and will need to pay all the associated re-examination fees to schedule a new exam. Essentially, you'll be treated like you failed it. For emergency situations in which you're unable to change your appointment, the extenuating circumstance policy may apply. However, PMI is going to evaluate those on a case-by-case basis. So you're going to have to be speaking to someone and explain what's going on. If you pass, as I said before, you will immediately be notified right on the test itself. You will also get an official letter, a certification pin that you can put on your suit, and a certificate itself sent in approximately 2 weeks. If you fail, you have to submit a re-examination form with the application exam fee to retest, which is $275 for a member and $375 for a non-member. Note that the examination results are confidential, are not disclosed to third parties. There used to be a concern about this. It was never true, and it is absolutely not true now. So a bit of a process map to show you the timeline. Online application, you submit this online and the window is open 90 days. Okay, you have 90 days to submit requested material if the application is audited. Once submitted, it then takes PMI 5 to 7 business days to process. Application completeness review, 5 calendar days when submitted online. Make the application payment. The audit process if application is selected. Examination eligibility. Once you receive your eligibility, you have 1 year from the date of the application approval. And once you pass, which of course we're all hoping will happen, you have a certification redoing cycle of 3 calendar years. Every year you've got to get 60 PDUs for those 3 years in order to recertify. Otherwise, you lose your certification. And do you really want to go through this again? I didn't think so. Okay, well, thank you very much. I hope this has helped. What we've looked at are 2 topics, the main one being the PMP program and the rather dramatic changes that have been made to it, and the PMP application process, which also has changed, but not as dramatically. Please feel free to connect with us. We're glad to help. If you have any specific questions, please send them on, and either I or one of our instructors will get back to you. You can do live chat, you can contact us directly on phone, or of course you can send emails.